Hi guys, ciao guys, welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we're here with Iwona to talk about, let me read the title, the official title of this lovely conversation, how to establish yourself as a keynote speaker with entrepreneur and thought leader, Iwona Fluda. Do you say Fluda in Polish?
Exactly.
Polish?
Perfect. Yes.
Iwona Fluda. Okay, perfect. Yes, we've got the pronunciation, guys. Iwona, welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jessica, for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation today. I'm good. We have finally winter, so everyone is happy, right?
Finally winter. Are you a fan
Yes.
of winter?
I'm a fan of the snow. I'm not a fan of the cold.
Okay. So did you notice that she's a creative, right? Of course. But she's not a fan of the cold, but she's fan of the snow. Of course, because the two things don't go together. Creative that she managed to separate, to divorce the cold from the snow. Can you believe that? Nobody had managed before. This is what creativity is all about. Creativity is everything, as Iwona says. Right? You always say this. Every time I meet you, you say creativity is everything. What do you mean?
Thanks for this question. It's kind of, for me, it's very much related to the creative mindset. You know, when you have the mindset of creation, everything what you are doing with the, with the heart, with the mind. So I would create something. I create something because, I want to establish something, because I want to support someone, because for whatever reason, the word creation, or to be creative, it's already having this very optimistic approach towards life and everything what is happening. That's why I say creativity is everything. The quite opposite of that, mentioning snow and cold, right, is distraction. So if you're a fan of distraction, go ahead, but that's not me. I'm more on the other spectrum, saying that creativity is everything. I truly believe that every single person is intrinsically extremely creative, and we just need to learn to tap into our creative powers.
Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely. By the way, we talk about innovation a lot here on the show, and in general, I talk about a lot about innovation, like whenever I talk about public relations and thought leadership, especially. And I talk less about creativity than about innovation. So my question to you now, very spontaneously, is what is the difference between innovation and creativity?
That's a good question. Well, define innovation, right? Well, I can tell you how innovation is understood. Maybe let's put it this way. So very often people think that, okay, if we have a cake and we put a very beautiful organic cherry on the top of the cake, that's innovation, right? But we don't consider that the whole cake is just full of very unhealthy ingredients. And basically, when you eat the cake, the small bio or organic cherry really doesn't help you. So for me, innovation would be to take the cake, disassemble it completely, have a look at all of the ingredients, and checking if it is worth it, if the ingredients are the right ones for the innovation. Or at the end of the day, also, we need to ask ourselves, do we need the cake? Maybe we don't need the cake at all. And so that's how I describe innovation for me. I think innovation innovation, exactly the same way as creativity, is extremely misunderstood, and there are lots of misconceptions around this. We talk a lot about innovation in Switzerland. I can beg you, most of the things we're doing are zero innovative. But further the country, I love how these things are also described, right? Because you can, of course, have the same as for creativity. You can have, of course, different approaches toward innovation. But putting an organic cherry on top of the very unhealthy cake is not an innovation, not for me. So creativity on the other spectrum, there is no innovation without creativity. You really need to think differently outside of your box to innovate and to create something different in the world. That's why, I think innovation is very much the real innovation is very much dependent on creativity and creative skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And I don't know if it's only me, but sometimes, I have the feeling that innovation is coming from all of these tech people, right? Especially, when we think about innovation, a lot of times we think about tech and, software engineering and AI and so on, right? But then if you look at these people, I mean, of course, there are exceptions, but, they're maybe nerds that don't seem to be very creative, like they wouldn't be right. Exactly. So this is a misconception as well, and I see it and I call myself out. I'm very, very biased, But at the same time, I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this way. Like these
Mm-hmm.
people, they don't look creative at all. They look logical, right? So there's, maybe it's a misconception of mine as well, but, you know, I've always thought that there are two categories of people. Of course, there is always a spectrum, but also when we talk about the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, one seems to be more dedicated to logic and the other one to creativity, right? So it's funny to know that most innovation these days actually comes from logical people in tech.
Well, it depends. I need to question a few things here or challenge a few things. So first of all, I read something very beautiful. There is no such a thing like distinction between neurologically between the right and the left brain parts. I don't know. I just read recently that, you know, it's actually a bias and a bullshit. It's just for people to understand the very complex brain a little bit easier. I can tell you how it's in my case. You know, I'm coming from both sides because I studied geography and German language. So I studied basically science and arts. And, you know, one of them, so geography is extremely analytical, you know, straightforward subject. German language too, but, you know, you have more this, let's say, artistic, to put it in the box, artistic way of thinking. And languages, of course, require different ways. Different skill sets, right? But what I wanted to say about this, of course, it's very easy for us to put things into boxes and this type of perspectives, right? Because that's how we understand and categorize the world. And that's how our brain also makes it easier for us to really remember things. Nevertheless, there are, of course, tons of exceptions out of this. So yeah, tech people can be considered whatever, but honestly, there are lots of amazing tech people who are not even visible on the market or in our environment, but they're amazingly creative, and we cannot take that from them. And in general, I believe that you know, every person is creative, and not just artists. I think that's the biggest misconception we have about creativity is that just artists can be creative, or you poor artist, you know, you are sitting here just painting or drawing or writing, oh, you poor girl or poor boy. But actually, you know, all of the other professions like science, like scientists are extremely creative. They have to be. Engineers the same, you know, architects the same. So it's not just for artists, it's for everyone.
Oh my God, this is very relieving to me because, for example, I hate everything that is manual. I just can't be bothered, right? I can't even do my hair, right? I can't even do makeup. I can't even bother to do that because it's manual, right? And I'm constantly in my head, and and a lot of times I think, or maybe other people think, that I'm not creative because I'm in my head so much, but actually I create a lot of new concepts and ideas and connections and so on in my head, right? So yes. I think that is the degree of creativity there as well, right? Regardless Absolutely. Of the dimension where you express it, right? Yeah, so I love that. Thank you for the precision.
You're welcome.
Please. I won't forget.
I think, you know, what you just mentioned right now, of course you are creative, and the reason behind it is because you have a very well-developed creative cognitive muscle, right? So if you come up with complex concepts or any concepts or new, very novel ideas, you're extremely creative, and there's no question about this.
Absolutely. Wow, I love that. But Iwona, we're here today to talk about you as a keynote speaker, traveling all around the world, giving keynotes and getting paid for it, like in a paid capacity, right? So this is today's topic. And we will continue talking about creativity because, I mean, the expert, you are the thought leader, you really recognize authority in the field of creativity. So definitely this is something that we'll talk about again in a few minutes. But how about we talk about how you became this thought leader, how you managed to establish your authority in this field, and that led you to also being invited to all of these conferences. I remember that a few months ago, you were even in Namibia, and you were there for like, I don't know, 10 days, 2 weeks on holiday. And it was just, I mean, you were there for a keynote, but then of course you were able to extend and everything was paid and the coverage was great on different media and so on. How did you reach that?
I think it started, you know, already many years ago. So I can also tell you that my very first public speaking engagement was when I was, I think, 11 or 10. And I remember until this day that I was just terrified. I was terrified to go and speak at the stage, you know, to all of the people
Yeah.
seeing me. But then, you know, I think that's how life happens. You know, I just faced all of the fears, and then I continued facing all of the fears for public speaking, and that's how I trained myself. I'm still not the master of the arts here, but it's definitely something that, you know, how I started. But I can tell you, know, when I with me speaking about creativity, marketing, creative leadership, all of these very important topics, the topics that are very close to my heart. I started actually a few years ago, where, you know, I just decided, let's say life brought me to a different dimension, and I had to, and I basically hit the wall to some extent, and I had to reestablish myself. And I just realized again, you know, creativity was always such a huge part of my life, but I have never considered that really very deeply. So that's exactly how I started. I started to read a lot about this, do crazy research around, you know, creativity, creative skills, manual and cognitive creative skills. And then I also started to write about this, and I started to, you know, write also on social media about this. And especially in the last few years, I also, thanks to social media, just to make clear, I got invited to speak at the events, to speak at the on the podcast, to give, you know, to write articles about creativity in different dimensions, and that's how it started actually. Really from purely experimentation, I would say, you know, purely focusing on something I'm very passionate about and talking about this to everyone that I meet actually. So it can get very boring at some point, right? But I just love this topic, but also then creating, you know, using my creativity and creative skills and creative tools that I have learned and developed and created in general in my work as a marketing consultant, in my work as a public speaker, but also then, you know, developing digital platform with the skills and doing all of the stuff that I do all around, you know, in my business.
I want to acknowledge you for having managed to create this reputation about yourself, because myself and everybody, we just associate you with creativity. It's like Iwona, creativity, Iwona. You think of Iwona, like both ways it works. Like in the circles where we operate, right? All the people that we know, the entrepreneurs that we know and so on, they all know you for creativity. So well done, because you really managed to build the reputation that you wanted. Awesome. Number one. And number two, you mentioned that you were able to attract all of these speaking opportunities through social media. And you also, by the way, you're not just a creativity thought leader about creativity, but also you are a digital marketer, right? So how were you able to bring these two fields together? How were you able to, through marketing, to create opportunities for yourself as a public speaker?
Thanks for this question. Of course, you know, most of my speaking engagements actually came from through social media. So far, not all of them. There are also, of course, other channels that you can reach people. But I can tell you, creativity is a very useful tool, or the creative mindset, I would say, is a very useful tool, because there is always, or, you know, most of the people, just to generalize a little bit on my end, would fear to put something on social media that is not, you know, not kind of, let's say, 100% accepted, right? Or is something novel or something that they're just curious about, but they're not sure yet. So I started to do that. And there, at some point, I was just like, you know, at the very beginning, especially, I was really hesitating writing about this. But I was like, well, what can happen? Nothing. So I published, right? And then I published again and again and again. At some point, I just created this vibe around creativity that people actually started to write to me and ask me about this, and ask me about, you know, what I'm doing in this field, how I'm doing that. Could I give them some consultancy in this field? Oh, by the way, because as I mentioned, and as you just mentioned, you know, I'm also a digital marketing consultant. So I started to consult people on this. So it's basically combining both fields. And creativity here is very useful because, for me especially, because I always say that there are 3 golden rules of creativity that I always follow. So the first rule is every idea is a good idea. So from the beginnings, right? Every idea is a good idea. There is no such thing as bad ideas. The second rule for me is even the sky is not the limit. Well, who actually has said that, you know, has said that the sky is the limit? Like, excuse me, maybe even the sky is not the limit. So for me, always, even the sky is not the limit. And then the third one is trust. And usually when I run workshops or speak at the events, I say, you know, in this time and space, trust is very important. So what happens here stays here. On social media, of course, they're a little bit different. Because what happens there is just it can be just everywhere, all around. But here, what I understand under trust is the trust in myself, my abilities, and what I'm bringing to the world, what I'm publishing is actually of value to other people, or can be of value to other people. That's why, that's for me the combination between how I understand creativity and, of course, marketing. Consultancy is a little bit different part, but I can tell you when I create strategies, because I also work strategically for different brands, when I create marketing strategies for different brands, the creative tools I have here in my, in my toolbox, they are just fantastic because, I don't have a degree in marketing, but because of that, I'm not biased on based on whatever knowledge and books I have read. But I just learned all of the skills on the way while practicing them. So all of the strategies that I deliver to my clients are automatically just so much different than from the book. They're just different stories. And thankfully, 99% of them were so far really successful. So I'm very happy about this.
99%?
I think so, yeah.
Rate. Oh my God. Yeah, guys, work with Iwona. I don't know, like 99%. Who can boast such a high success rate? I don't think anybody can, especially in digital marketing, where you can't control everything because it's not a science. It's also based a lot on psychology. We'll never know how people will react. Like you kind of predict, but yeah, you will never know 100%. Wow, well done. Wow.
Absolutely, yes. But that's why what I believe also in, adding to the 3 golden rules I just mentioned around creativity. With this type of mindset, when you create a strategy that is completely different than any other strategy from a digital template, of course, your odds of success are way higher. Yeah. And that's for me very important that, we don't need to go the one way that everyone is going. And I'm absolutely aware of, all of the digital tools changing their algorithms and all of the technical parts of the tools changing all the time, but still we can play around this. And I think the most important thing is around, and I think in marketing, in life, in creativity, just to experiment. And I always say to people, look, we just run this very crazy sprint. We just run this experiment and we will see. But we will do just everything what we have in our hands to make this happen. And when we do that, and when we also are able to learn from that, I think that's also a very important component. When we are able to learn from what we just have done, what we just experimented about or on, then of course we can make better informed decisions for the next experiment.
Absolutely, definitely. Wow, I love this. And so we've been talking about how you get opportunities, let's say inbound. So it's inbound traffic of opportunities that you get because you have this great social media presence. As a digital marketer, you know how to, basically strategize your online presence. And that brings in leads, so to say, that, basically people reach out to you because they want to work with you and they want you to speak at their conferences. Have you also done any outbound, let's say, outreach, so to say? So outreach and outbound, of course, they're synonyms, but have you also, contacted conference organizers in order to get invited as a keynote speaker? Or can you both, no, I only get invited, I can't be bothered, I don't look for opportunities?
Of course, I look for opportunities. I'm super open. I welcome all of the opportunities, especially for next year. I'm very happy to invite and welcome all of the opportunities. Maybe I did that like in 2 cases. I don't remember. But I don't do it, really. That's probably something I can learn from you, doing it really strategically, sitting down and sending off my portfolio, my speaking portfolio to all of the conferences. That's a good point. I will definitely consider that for next year.
You're speaking reel. You speak a reel. Yes, exactly. Do you have a speaker reel?
No, I don't have a speaker reel, but I have a speaker portfolio. So that's a great idea. I need to,
I think it's a speaker reel. And also, not that you need this stuff. You need it to either amplify what you have been achieving, but you already have been achieving amazing results. So of course, what you have been doing has already been working. And yes, but do you have a speaker kit? You said a portfolio, right? So
I have a portfolio.
Right. So it contains maybe like the topics that you usually discuss and the names of your speeches. Yeah. How many do you have? Let's talk about that because it seems to work because you've been using it. So how is your, let's say, speaker kit or speaker portfolio structured, that document? Is it a PDF?
It's a PDF, yes.
And what are the sections?
So there's, short information about who I am, what I'm doing, and what is the magic behind what I'm doing. the topics I'm focusing on and the list of the keynote speeches that I have been delivered so far.
That's cool. Probably with links as well to YouTube or so where the speeches are available. Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Or to the, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes. And what would you recommend for people who would like to just start? Maybe they haven't, had an opportunity for a keynote speech yet. They would just like to start. What would be the first, let's say, 2 or 3 steps that you would recommend to them?
That's a typical marketing question. Of course, I can tell you. So usually when I have this case on the table, there are 3 questions I always ask. So what's the main topic you would like to focus on? Because we know there is so much noise, right? You basically choose from the abundant pot of ideas of what you can talk about, or it can be based on your expertise, but it can be something completely different, something completely new that you would like to discover, and you want to establish your speaking career based on that, right? So what's this one? And then there are 3 why questions. So the first why question is, why is it important for you personally? Because it can be whatever reasons that are, it really doesn't matter, but you need to know for yourself why you believe and why in this particular topic and why it's important for you personally. The second why is it important for, for example, for the conferences, for the audiences you are going to talk to, so why it's important for them. And the third why question is why it's important for the broader audience, which means why it's important for the world, how we are going to, impact the world with this particular topic, for example, right? So that's the questions. And the last question is around how, so what are you going to do with this now? So you have all of this information, and say, based on that, you can also create like a very short portfolio or very short, description of your speaking services. And then, how it's, okay, what you are going to do with that. So are you going to write about this on LinkedIn because you want to establish yourself on digital marketing, on digital media, right? Or are you going to send portfolios to potential conferences, as you just mentioned? You can do that too, right? Or you can start approaching people that that organize our conferences. Maybe they would be interested in, you speaking at this particular about this particular topic. But I think what is very important, especially at the very beginning, and that's what I have been doing, to be very to understand also as an experiment. And the reason behind this is when we are getting very creative in this, when we are experimenting on different topics that we are not yet experts at, or we are not yet super sure, how to do these things, then we are taking off the whole pressure from our shoulders. And that's a very powerful kind of creative tool to experiment, because, okay, that's just an experiment. If it fucks up, pardon my French, then I can go and run the next experiment and the next experiment, right? But the important aspect is what I mentioned before, is to learn from this experiment and to iterate to the extent that, okay, at some point you're just like, okay, I have done so far everything, like that's what worked, I'm going to continue with this.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God. I love that you talked about failure as well. We didn't use the word failure explicitly, but this is what we meant as well. So if there is failure, then take it as an opportunity to learn and to grow. The most important thing is that you fail fast enough and that you learn from your failure, right? And that
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that is a topic that is really, really often discussed in entrepreneurship. So talking about the audiences that you reach through your keynotes, are they mainly composed by entrepreneurs? So the conferences that you have been invited to, were they mainly, let's say, entrepreneurial conferences or conferences for entrepreneurs?
That's true. The audiences so far were extremely diverse, I need to say. From teachers to entrepreneurs to senior level corporate managers. So really diverse. Nevertheless, what I really love about, despite of the audiences, and very often I even don't want to know what is the audience behind, which is quite the opposite of what usually people suggest. Because what I do, when I speak at the conferences or when I run a creativity workshop at different events, that's all very experimental, right? So I don't just talk about something for 30 minutes, but I let people to experience that power with different tools. So that's something that can work absolutely across industries and across generations, let's put it this way. Yeah.
That's so cool. So basically, when you talk with different audiences, then of course, in a way, you do adjust your message a little bit, of course, because we always have to remind the person that is in front of us that we're talking to. But at the same time, you have this modality, which is like really, really practical and experimentation as well, that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much which industry that person is from, right? So that's perfect.
Absolutely. Also, because imagine creativity is an overarching topic, right? It really covers or can cover all of the industries because it's such an important tool to really create anything in the world. So, yeah.
That's cool. That is awesome. Yes. Now, I had a couple of notes. You can know, guys, that I never do notes, but I did do this. So I wanted to ask you, because I've heard you talking about creative leadership in different circles. So I was like, maybe we can talk about it in this setting as well. It could be interesting for our audience. So what is creative leadership, Iwona?
Okay, that's a perfect question. So I know there are tons of different types of leadership, right? So creative leadership is like creativity plus leadership for me, which basically means what I do with that, I guide teams through different creative processes so they can, instead of, for example, speaking for 2 hours about a challenge that they face and they have at the table and it's very urgent, I guide them through a creative process where we use different creative tools, and at the end of the process, they have the answers at the table. And it's not talking. We mostly don't talk, like we talk very little. But creative leadership is, I can tell you how I understand leadership in general. And for me, leadership or any type of leadership, it can be authentic leadership, it can be creative leadership, it can be whatever leadership you please. It's very much related to self-leadership, how we lead ourselves. Because when we know ourselves and we know how we lead ourselves and what's important for us personally on the professional level, but also in general in the broader world, then it's way easier to actually impact and influence the surroundings, right? It's way easier to impact your employees, your audiences, because you know yourself so good. And this, of course, comes from with both sides. It comes from with all of our talents, because we are all extremely talented, right? So we have this very talent, this all of the talents in our hands, but also it comes from the, with the shadowy part of our personalities, right? Because we all have our, let's say, challenges, right, that we face in our lives. So I think finding the balance is also very important. But any type of leadership, for me, comes to self-leadership, yourself first, and then guiding the world and creating things in the world based on that.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, I love that so much. I created a kind of leadership as well. I just created it a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, I want to create connected leadership. Or I don't know, maybe I called it connected leadership. Because at the end of the day, if you are a super connector, if you're a network, no, actually you have to be a connector, and especially a super connector. I think that then when you start putting all of these people together, you actually establish yourself as a leader. I mean, you have to have leadership in order to bring all of these people together, to build communities, to build small groups as well, even do intros one-to-one, but it's still like you are taking the situation into your own hands and you are being creative, right? You're creating something new. So I think there is some leadership involved as well when you are a connector. So I was like, okay,
absolutely. Wait a second. Absolutely. Because leaders, as you know yourself, that's also people who influence and impact the world, right? And you clearly influence and impact the world. With creative leadership, is more like maybe the creative leaders, how I understand it, they just have different type of tools, right? So I have tons of different creative tools in my toolbox. Therefore, I know that creative leadership is one of the main topics for me to talk about. And also maybe less talk about, but really using the tools and guiding people through the process. So therefore, they can develop and discover their creative leadership skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. But you've just said something that has sparked my attention. You said Creative Switzerland. So is there anything that you have to say about this? Any projects? I don't know.
Nothing, boring life. Creative Switzerland, I'm sleeping with this business for I have been sleeping with this business for the last 5 years. Oh
my God.
Creative Switzerland, initially when I started that was an online booking platform for creative activities here in Switzerland. So everything what you hate, manual work was there, like wood making classes, cooking classes, artistic classes, a group of fantastic creative people behind us. But of course, we had this very surprising 2020 with this very tiny thing that just disrupted the whole world. And for many months, we were just not allowed to run workshops, or it was just too dangerous to run workshops. What I discovered were, I think, in general, the creative, cultural, and travel industry were the most hit by the pandemic. And many of the people I had in my community and I worked with, they lost their businesses because of that, which was, of course, very challenging to observe too, right? Because the businesses were just clearly disrupted. So these days, we call it, I'm pivoting the business model, and I'm moving more to online courses on creativity, creative skills. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And somebody told me, a little bird told me that you do have something coming up in this field, like maybe a little boot camp.
Very tiny, yes. Yes, I do.
Right.
I run this year or the first cohort of the online creativity bootcamp. The next class starts in January. That's 21 days to unleash your creative potential. And it looks like every day you are getting a creative tool and you have the whole day to basically implement the tool. Minimum 15 minutes, that's just the bare minimum. But of course, if you can invest more time, commitment is important, do it. And the next day, you're getting all of the secrets behind this creative tool and why it's important for you to practice this particular tool for your creative skills. And then, of course, you're getting the next creative task, the next creative tool for the whole day. Yes.
And that is 21 days. Does it have like, let's say, a neuroscientific background, this decision to run the challenge for 21 days?
Yes. Tell me. I'm sure you're also familiar with that. 21 days basically means that, you are creating your habit, right? So already committing to your creativity subconsciously, committing to your creativity for 21 days means that your subconscious mind is just like prepared for that. It's ready to go. It wants to do it, wants to, commit to something so important, right? And after 21 days, you are getting, in this case, you are getting homework, which I'm not going to spoil your audience with that, or you are getting homework. And the idea behind is basically you just need to create the habit. The habit of being creative. Yeah.
The habit of being creative is so cool, because habit sounds something so rigid and creativity something, so flowy, right? But no, you have to have a habit of creativity. I mean, you can, and it's recommended by Iwona to have a habit of creativity. And it's so cool because then when the habit is established, Iwona, then people maybe will continue. Day 22, 23, 24, the challenge is not on anymore, but they will still continue, right? So this is your...
They always have access to the challenge, right? They also to the bootcamp. They always have access to the videos, to all of the content related to that. So they can always come back and see.
That's cool. Yes. And let me check the time. Yeah, we have another few minutes, and there are a few other questions that I prepared that I wanted to ask you. So I have two more, and then another one that I ask everybody. But one is, what's the change that you would like to see that would empower more people to participate in creating a fairer future? And that connects me to another question that I have. Okay, I'm going to ask this one as well, which is about your sustainable business called Organic Cosmetics, right? It's a social enterprise. So how can we use creativity basically to make a better world?
That's a great question. So talking about the fairer world, right? And what I wish in the world to change, actually, I really would love people, like every individual, to start tapping into their creative powers. And it's not because that's just a fluffy, nice concept of life, but I just know and I have experienced how much this concept and these ideas and these tools can really change everything in your environment. So that's definitely this one. And just to kind of give you a short background on that, like all of the people, not most of the people, went through a very non-creative schooling system that basically, have destroyed the creativity in general, because creativity is unfortunately not yet really supported in our schooling system. I was that case too, but at some point I had to face myself, which I resisted for a very long time, but I did that. I had to face myself. I had to face my past, if you wish. and heal from many things, and then really re-establish myself on a completely different level. And I wish, and that's exactly how I also started to tap into my creativity and creative potential. And I wish all of the people to have that power too, to change, the power to change, actually to transform.
Yes, exactly. Wow. And basically your journey is something that also led you to creating this social enterprise, right? Would you like to talk about it maybe? Because you
Absolutely.
have another product.
Yes. So organiccosmetic.ch, that's basically an online shop with organic and vegan cosmetics, surprise, surprise, but also with the mission to end menstrual poverty. Of course, the mission is huge, and I hope to see in my lifetime that this challenge is going to be completely covered, completely, solved in general. But for me, I decided with this business to create a 100% social enterprise, which means, I support regional small manufacturers who manufacture cosmetics. I support people here in Switzerland who otherwise wouldn't find a job on the market because of their background, refugees, migrants, or because of the mental challenges they are facing. So I collaborate with the labor organization in Winterthur, and they're my wonderful happiness center where people pack all of the packages and they ship them. But the third part, which I think it's kind of something that really speaks to my heart directly, spoke to my heart when I started that, was that I support women and girls who suffer from menstrual poverty. And this is a huge challenge. There are 500 million people around the world who don't have access to menstrual products every single month, which means automatically, unfortunately, that they cannot go to schools, they cannot go to work, they miss out all of the opportunities. And I think it's a sick situation in such a wealthy world not to give girls and women the same access, right? The same opportunities because they're girls and women. So I decided to support an NGO based here in Switzerland with operations in Zimbabwe, and up to date we could support over 500 girls and women over there with products, but also with education in this particular field. So that's for me. And the fourth thing that I think is also very important is raising awareness on the importance of our skincare. I know we have lots of beautiful vegan and organic cosmetics in our markets, and to challenge the industry a little bit, I can tell you we shouldn't use most of them. But it's very important for individuals to be aware that you have a choice also to choose from really good, really organic, and really organic, really vegan cosmetics, and not from something that's very often is just toxic, right? Because all of the things that we are putting on our skin, they go to our body, to our organs, and they influence our system. So I think it's very important to raise awareness also on this topic.
Oh my God, yes, definitely. This is one of the reasons why I don't do makeup, definitely.
And wow. I can just tell you, I used all of my creative tools to create this business, Yes, exactly. I came up with these ideas because of the creative tools, yeah.
Exactly. So you put all of your creativity at work, and you created, one of the things that you created is this amazing social entrepreneurship. But my question was going to be, because the main angle of this conversation is you being a keynote speaker, and we've established that you are a keynote speaker, like recognized keynote speaker, and recognized expert in the field of creativity all over the world. And that's why you get invited to so many conferences. But to me, you could actually be a keynote speaker about also social entrepreneurship. Right. So my question is it something that you've done already, or is it something that you plan on doing maybe for 2023? Because now everybody's fantasizing and planning 2023. Is it something that you have in mind to really create impact there as well?
I haven't. Well, let's put it. I haven't done that yet very specifically, but I need to say I mention this story always. When I have a chance to talk about organiccosmetic.ch and the impact that we have had so far, I always mention that because, I think we live just in a very privileged world where we can make the choices, we can decide how we are running our businesses, we can decide, how we disrupt less or more the industries, and how we truly bring forward, the work that needs to be done to really improve lives of people. And for me, in today's world especially, there are no excuses, especially in the Western world, to say we don't do it because, we cannot lose the money. It's rather we need to change the ways of thinking that we have around entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and the impact that our businesses have in the world in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, I love that. And at the same time, unfortunately, we are approaching the end of our conversation. But before that, Iwona, I do have one last question that I ask everybody. And sometimes I get silly answers because the question is to be interpreted as silly as it, of itself. But let's see what you come up with. So, Iwona, what is a question that I haven't asked you in the past 47 minutes, but I should have asked you?
That's a good one.
This is where your creativity gets to shine now.
I have too many of them right now.
Yes.
How can we co-create the world together in 2023? So next year when we meet here in this room in December, we will just celebrate.
Oh my God, yes. Let me ask you this question. So what are we going to talk about? Wait, let's say, Iwona, that you and I get back here on the Personal PR Show in exactly 1 year. It's the 16th of December, 2023. What has happened? What have we created? What have we co-created this year to make the world a better place? And always by leveraging, of course, creativity.
No, I need to answer that question, right? Of course. For me, considering all of the 3 golden rules of creativity I mentioned before, even the sky is not the limit. I wish that we will thrive individually on such a great level that there is nothing that can really disrupt us. Nothing that can disrupt our peace in general as individuals. So that's one thing I wish all of us. I wish all of us true, pure collaborations and co-creations. And I talk here about any business collaborations or any personal, whatever is on your table. I wish that to all of us, going to the world with the idea of creation and creating with others, with enthusiasm and hope and impact, the influence that we can create together. I wish us to talk about all of the successes that we had in this particular field. I wish for me personally to establish myself even more as a keynote speaker, to get fantastic clients with whom I can create and co-create project strategies, whatever the world brings to us and whatever we decide to co-create. But I wish us all also a lot of health. I wish us to be healthy and empowered and encouraged and just very calm and optimistic about whatever is coming our ways. And I wish us also to tap even more into our creative powers and speak here in this room next year and talk about all of the creation that we have done.
Oh my God, Iwona, you don't need to do your New Year's resolution anymore. They're done already. You've done it. Now you can enjoy New Year's Eve without having, to take your journal and write everything down, right? It's done. Well done. Exactly. And at the same time, I have to say that probably we will but we will make it happen. We will meet here again on the 16th of December, 2023. And I will ask Chair, our lovely relationship manager, to already make an appointment. So we have it in our calendar. Right. Yeah. So cool. And we'll take this snippet that you have, the snippet of you talking about all of these lovely wishes for 2023, and we will play it at the beginning of our conversation next year.
Let's do it. So I have one more wish for us. I wish us also, I need to remember that. I wish us all also to have truly abundant lives, not just creative lives, but also abundant lives when it comes to whatever resources you need, when it comes to finances, but also abundance of friendships and joy and communities and support and whatever is needed in our journeys next year.
Love it. Absolutely. Oh my God, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Iwona. Come back before the 16th of December, 2023, please. Come back in the next quarter or so. You're always welcome on the Personal PR Show. And we'll celebrate even more keynotes for you all over the world.
Thank you so much, Jessica. All the best to you.
All the best to you too. Thank you so much, Iwona. Thank you so much, guys, for watching us here on the Personal PR Show. And the next episode will be, I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 2 days. I don't even know, but we'll definitely be here. You won't miss it. Cool. Thank you. Bye. 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 Mwah.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.